Here I am, making a video about how I've lost the motivation to do much of anything, including the motivation to make this video. But I think making this video will help me process how I'm feeling about having lost my motivation in the first place. So I can't start to process what I want to process if I don't make the video. But I don't want to make the video because I don't want to do anything. But I need to make the video because I know it will help make me feel better. But I can't. Life sucks. And I don't mean my life specifically, but life in general as a concept. We come into this world having no idea why we're here or what we're doing, and then we pretend like we're figuring it out for a relatively short amount of time before once again leaving this world, ultimately knowing just as little about our circumstances as when we came into it. I assume. I haven't died yet, so if you're watching this and you're a ghost, no spoilers. But if you ask me, that's a shit deal. Over the course of thousands of years of random, chaotic evolution, or about 5 minutes worth of miracles, depending on your denomination, humans have developed or been given the gift of conscious thought, of life beyond survival. But sometimes it feels like the kind of gift that you didn't really want or ask for, you know, one you get from a distant family member who you have very little contact with, and you acknowledge that it was nice of them to think of you, but also, what the fuck am I supposed to do with whiskey stones, ex-uncle by marriage Jerry? No one has ever used whiskey stones, and no one ever will. So stop buying them for your distant relatives. I wish it were that simple, but I know that the corporate bigwigs behind the travesty that is the whiskey stone will never let it die. So, you know, you get the weird smooth cubes for your birthday or whatever, and it is a nice gesture, and of course there's no gift receipt, and you can't throw them out yet because you feel a little guilty. And remember how this whole metaphor started out being about life, and while you can put the whiskey stones in a random drawer and never think about them again, unfortunately, that's not something you can do with your life. So what can you do with it? When it comes to deciding what you want to do with your life, it's something that you have to do right now. There are right and wrong answers, the stakes are immeasurable, and every second you waste trying to figure it out
is one less second you'll spend being happy.
At least that's what my brain tells me sometimes, and with increasing frequency as I'm getting older. I turned 23 this year, and there's nothing special about being 23. In fact, its insignificance is what makes it significant in this context. This is when I feel like adulthood begins. From the ages of 0 to 22-ish, life is full of possibility. When you're a kid, you have no idea how the world works. You're governed only by your own imagination, and existence is simple. Then you make it to high school, where you mature enough to have semi-adult-like fun, but ultimately still have very few responsibilities. So that's a pretty cool combination of states of being. Then maybe you head to college, where you can really start to grow into your own skin, form your first real relationships, make your first real mistakes, and learn how to be a person in society, but with the comfort of knowing that your future is still ahead of you. And then before you know it, that future becomes the past, and now you're 23 and settling into a career of some kind, and then that's it. The moment you've been building up to your entire life is here. And now you get to do the same thing every day for the rest of your life, and then you die. Congrats on being a human. The odds that you specifically would ever even exist were 1 in infinity. And now that you're here, go fuck yourself. Okay, that might be a bit hyperbole, but this is where I feel like I'm at right now, on the precipice of endless monotony. And I'm trying to figure out how I can take a step back from that ledge. As I've been diagnosing this little itch in the back of my brain over the past year or so, I've settled on the idea that everything I've done up until this point has amalgamated into a foundation of sorts. High school, college, dropping out of college, trying to start some kind of career. In doing all of these things, I was constructing the canvas that my adult life will play out on. And now it's built. And it's massive, the kind of canvas that would take you, say, 60 to 70 years to complete for the sake of this metaphor. It's towering over me. And I'm staring up at its overwhelming emptiness with no idea what to paint. And as I've been considering this bigger picture, I keep coming back and attempting to answer one question. What do I want to accomplish? And the longer that question has gone unanswered, the further I've lowered the bar, to the point that now the question is just, what's one thing I want to accomplish? A goal, singular. I mean, let's at least get a few brushstrokes on the metaphorical canvas, right? But it's a question that I'm still trying to answer. When I consider life's biggest landmarks, I feel pressured by their weight, but ultimately indifferent about most of them. Do I want to get married? Yeah, probably, but that's not really a goal more than it is something that might happen. Do I want to have kids? Yeah, I think, well...
It is either a climate solidarity pact or a collective suicide pact.
She's crooked Hillary, don't you understand that?
Every human being has something of value that they brought to the table, especially Hitler.
Toxic masculinity is a term that was invented by women nobody wants to fuck.
You can game some of these algorithms by being way more over the top, by having more extreme ideas.
This latest massacre at an elementary school in a small Texas town.
I'm heartbroken for these families.
Well, it feels like mass shootings are becoming as American as apple pie.
Yeah, it's a tough one to answer, but honestly, not something I'm very close to seriously considering anyway. So maybe I should have some professional goals. Do I want to climb to the top of my industry, or at least see how high I can get? Find the Mr. Big in me, just become sort of ambiguously successful? No, not really. I don't think I possess the desire to work that hard. And also, Mr. Big sucks. And honestly, so does Carrie. I'll say it. If I could go back in time to 2003 and also not be 4 years old, that would be my hot take on pop culture. I'm a Miranda stan through and through, but it's not 2003, and I'm not 4 years old. I'm 23 and standing at the Carnival of Life's prize wall, looking at the big ticket items. Spouse, child, career, impractically large stuffed bear. And while these are the milestones that probably first come to mind for most of us, goals don't have to be huge and life-changing like these ones. Sure, the 6-foot-tall, cheaply made stuffed bear that absolutely will not fit in your mom's Honda Civic sticks out the most, but there are other prizes to shoot for, like the light-up yo-yo, or a most likely dead goldfish in a plastic bag that's been floating around a kiddie pool in the sun for 14 hours. Carnivals are weird. The point is, goals can be small, very small, like trying to go for a walk every day, or eat more kale, or eat less hot Cheetos, or not watch 6 seasons, 2 movies, and the reboot of an old sitcom in the very healthy and balanced span of 3 weeks. I know that, but this is sort of the root of my problem. I'm kicking life's big goals down the road, fine, but am simultaneously struggling to set, let alone pursue, smaller ones, which leaves me just feeling stagnant. I mean, you're watching an example of that. It took me 7 months to get this video out, simply because I just couldn't find the motivation. There were many times, literally any moment in the past 7 months, when I could have worked on this video. But it was just easier not to. This seemingly stationary point that I'm at in my life is why the only answer I can come up with to the question, what do I want to do with my life, is nothing. I want to do nothing. And I don't think I'm necessarily alone in that. I mean, people are always looking for ways to do nothing. Most of our lives are spent fantasizing about not doing things. I mean, you hear it all the time. Things like, oh, to be a cat lying in the sun, or oh, to be a dog lying in the sun, or oh, to be a sea lion lying in the... Okay, I guess really people just aspire to lay on the ground. But those kinds of thoughts are comforting because it's the ultimate form of escapism, right? The pinnacle of non-existence. There's no better way to escape your reality than to have no perception of it in the first place, like a cat or a dog or a sea lion. But not only is becoming any of those things obviously impossible, it's also just a bit conceptually flawed. It's one of those ideas that sounds nice when you say it, but if you really start to think about it, you realize that it kind of creates more problems than it solves. Exhibit A. Spoiler, there's no Exhibit B. Let's say that I'm having a meh day, and as I stare blankly at my computer screen, I think to myself, I would rather be a frog, which I would on paper. I'd like to hop around the woods, eat some bugs, do that weird thing with my throat, maybe climb a tree, and most importantly, never have a single thought. If we pretend for a second that the physical complications are no longer a barrier, and I can indeed turn into a frog straight up Tiana style, no problem. What would that look like? Horrifying. The attribute of the frog that I most desire is its lack of self-awareness, because I have learned as a human being that sometimes self-consciousness is the whiskey stones of human evolution, and I would like to relieve myself of those stupid cubes. So following that line of logic, my self, my consciousness, can't be transferred to the frog, because that would defeat the whole purpose of why I want the transformation in the first place. If my consciousness follows my corporeal form, then I would just be a self-aware frog, which would probably be a horrible nightmare beyond my comprehension. However, if my consciousness isn't transferred to my new frog self, then there would no longer be a me to consider my new reality and rejoice in the satisfaction of becoming the frog, which is what I really desire, that wave of relief I'm imagining I would get from instantly ridding myself of all of my human problems. Joseph Heller, you've done it again, you son of a bitch. I would never get the satisfaction I desire because there would simply be a moment in time where I stop existing and a frog starts existing, with nothing that explicitly links the two events. So I wouldn't be turning into a frog as much as I would just be intentionally abandoning my consciousness, which is sometimes also referred to as suicide. So I guess the conclusion to this less than academic bootleg exercise in what I think is philosophy is that when you say things like, oh, to be a cat lying in the sun, what you're really saying is, I want to kill myself. I don't know what reason they have not to give me a TED Talk. Okay, do I realize that this is the kind of thing people say in jest when they're having a bad day? Yes. Have I overanalyzed it? Also yes. But the reason I bring it up is because when it comes to picking hypothetical impossibilities as solutions to my problems, I'm realizing that dwelling on ideas like anamorphing into a less sentient being might not be a good use of time, when instead, I could go on the offensive by taking the fight to time itself, because time can go fuck itself. Time is terrifying, and in a real asshole kind of way, because it gets you from every direction. Often I feel anxious about how little time we have. There's so much I haven't done and so many things I haven't seen and so many people I haven't met, and it's easy to start feeling like I can't possibly keep up with the steady forward march of life. And then other times I feel like I have too much time. I feel overwhelmed by just how long I have to be alive. Like, how am I going to fill that time? I've got to do something with it, right? The future often feels fleeting and other times feels inconvenient. And then there's the present, the most elusive designation of time. Moments when I'm enjoying life, laughing with old friends or making new ones. Moments when I feel inspired while reading a good book or watching a good movie. Moments when I'm living through something special, to one degree or another. There is always, without fail, this parasitic thought that tunnels its way past the defenses of this fortress of pleasant distraction to remind me how terrifying it is, just how fast this moment that I'm enjoying to the fullest is becoming the past. Because the present doesn't really exist. The present is time's shadow. It's always falling behind. It's constantly becoming the past. And that's really where we exist. Everything is behind us. Our best days, our worst days are all behind us, or at least they will be as soon as they happen. Today, 10 years from now is going to feel like today, 10 years ago is going to feel like today. It's all the same. We're born into this world holding a one-way ticket for a train that's barely non-stop toward obscurity. And there's very little we can do about that. Besides this. Writing, photographing, filming, drawing, painting, sculpting, the medium can vary, but the purpose is the same. Preservation. This YouTube video, while not exactly as eloquent or revered as a painting or a sculpture, will always serve as a time capsule of this particular point in my life. At least for a while. As long as possible. Of course, eventually, time will still win. Everything we create is on the same proverbial train we are. It just follows a few cars behind us. So, like anything else, the words on the page and the pixels on the screen will one day succumb to entropy. But it's the only way to put on the brakes, even just a little bit. When I say I want to do nothing with my life, what does that even mean? If it's not turning into a frog or treating my brain like a set of forgotten whiskey stones, then what does nothing mean? Well, I think it actually means that I want to do a whole lot of things. But because I'm in this weird mental limbo right now, I'm just having a hard time focusing on them. So sometimes it feels like it might just be easier to do none of them. And it's this lack of direction and motivation that's fueling my existential fear of time, because the last thing I want to do is waste it. In the beginning of this video, I said, well, you can and will put the whiskey stones in a random drawer and never think about them again. Unfortunately, that's not something you can do with your life. So what can you do with it? And sitting here at the end of it, I still don't know. But that's okay. Does anybody really? What I do know is that I'm going to try and not stress about it. Because while I might feel like I'm doing nothing with my life right now, I know that the moment when I figure this out is seconds away. Just like how every moment of the rest of my life is. When it's all said and done and I'm on my deathbed, it's going to have all felt like that. In the meantime, I want to keep doing this in some capacity. Sure, I need to work on finding a better, maybe more efficient way to go about it, which I guess is a small goal that I can try and build some momentum off of, because I know for certain that despite what my frustrating procrastination habits and consistent lack of motivation might indicate, I want to keep writing. I want to keep making videos. I want to keep making art. I want to keep pushing back against time the best that I can. And maybe that's only barely more than nothing. But it's a start.